My name is Peter Isley, I-S-E-L-Y, and I'm here because I'm a survivor of sexual assault and abuse when I was a child by a priest in Wisconsin. And whenever we're here in Chicago, and what we have to say today is very grave, it's very important. It's alarming. It's disconcerting. And it's urgent. But when we're here in Chicago, our organization, the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, I'm one of the founders, started in this city with Barbara Blaine. And many people in this community, especially about this issue, know Barbara, knew Barbara. She passed away some years ago at way too young of an age. And so we always take a moment when we're here in Chicago to think about her and to know that she's with us, and to know that she would want to see this unfortunate day happen, but want to see it happen. We're here today to talk about Pope Leo. We've been here before talking about him when he was elected Pope. And survivors around the world were in Rome when he was elected. And the day before he was elected, we didn't know who the Pope was going to be, but we issued a public letter to who the next Pope was going to be. And we asked two things of him: that whoever that man was, when he stood out on that balcony at St. Peter's with hundreds of thousands of people below him and millions of people watching around the world, that the first words that he would utter would be to the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of victims of sexual assault by clergy and priests around the world. We needed to hear from him. This struggle has been going on for decades. The world now knows, all around the world, because survivors are all around the world, we work with them all around the world, that this is not a problem that is isolated. It's not located in some country or some particular diocese. It is a global, systematic problem of the widespread sexual assault and abuse of children around the world in this institution. So we wanted him to acknowledge those that have been harmed and hurt. That's the first thing we wanted him to do. And we wanted him to make a promise from that balcony that no pope has made in modern times. And that is that there is going to be a universal law in the Catholic Church, because they have their own law, they have their own even criminal system. And what we needed, what the world needed to hear him say, finally, is that there is going to be a binding universal law across the globe in the Catholic Church that any cleric that has been determined and known to have raped or sexually assaulted or abused a child was going to be permanently and forever removed from the ministry and from the priesthood. That single act by him, which would be literally one page, the law has been drafted, it's there, he actually has it. His one signature could literally that day save from abuse and assault thousands and thousands of children around the world. But he didn't say that. He didn't say that at all. And we are still waiting for those words. And the other thing that we were so concerned about for the man walking on that balcony is that we cannot have another pope in this system, in this institutional system, that has covered up for child sex crimes. Unfortunately and sadly, it has now been, and we will bring the evidence today, more of that evidence. It is incontrovertible. It is voluminous. It is church documents. It is recordings. It is emails, including by the Pope, that is exactly what he did. When he was bishop in Chiclayo in Peru, he was involved in one of the worst cases of assault and abuse that we've ever come across. And we know these victims. There are three sisters. They were sexually assaulted and abused by a priest that the Pope was completely responsible for. This offender, as many of these pedophiles, took these children to a remote location, these sisters separately at different times, and he sexually assaulted them. When they had the courage to come forward in 2020 to then Bishop Prevost, now the Pope, about what happened to them, he told them, I believe you, because it was completely believable. And he may have had prior evidence about this priest, a very famous priest. Sarah will be talking about him in a moment. They have now, since 2020, been in this titanic struggle to get this priest out of ministry and away from harm for children. And unfortunately, the Pope, Bishop Prevost at the time, has done nothing, as the evidence shows, virtually nothing, but make it almost impossible for that to happen. It has only been public exposure by these brave victims who came forward publicly, because that is the only way things change. I've been at this 35 years. The only way things change is when there's consequences and accountability. So that's what these young women, imagine these three young women who were assaulted and abused as children, they've had for the protection of other children. And that is their single only motivation. I don't know a survivor around the world that ever wants to go public, that ever wants to talk about this. They do it for one reason, like I did and so many of us have done, because we don't want this to happen to another child. That's why we do it, and that's why they did it. And in doing it, they have been treated horribly by the church, including, unfortunately, by the Pope. They have been misled. They have been deceived. They have been delayed, but they have persisted in doing this. Finally, this man is out of ministry, and we'll talk a little bit about this, because the way the Pope, only the Pope could do this, only Leo could do this. He didn't have a criminal trial for this man, as should have been done. He has let him quietly leave the priesthood honorably. Honorably. In doing this, the Pope has violated, and we've documented this, you'll see this, at least probably 24 of the church's own policies and practices around how they're supposed to deal with abusive priests. So our call today is very simple. We need people to know about Pope Leo's record. We are alarmed about what he has not done since he's been Pope. He's talked about zero tolerance as being an impossibility. He literally called it that. That's going to be probably impossible. That's going to be really difficult. It's not really difficult. It's not difficult at all. But that's alarming. He's talked about defending accused priests, that's really important. That's really got to be right up there as the most important thing. And you'll see how he defended this accused priest, not just accused, but guilty priest, who made admissions about what he had done. So we're here today to continue to press for reform, to call out the Pope. Yes, he's the Pope, but he's the man on top, and he is not above the law. And if he does not follow the law, there isn't a single bishop or abusive priest on this planet that has to do so either. So we're here as survivors in Chicago. We have survivors from Chicago here. There's a special relationship between survivors in the United States and survivors in Peru because of this Pope. And we have joined together, we have linked together. We absolutely back these Peruvian survivors. The struggle they're under, what they have to face is enormous. It's titanic. These sisters have been attacked. Their reputation has been attacked, sometimes with the help of outlets from the church. That's totally unacceptable. The Pope needs to take full responsibility and transparency for the evidence and what he's done. He needs to be investigated for what he's done. It doesn't matter if he's the Pope, just like any other bishop, and he needs to be investigated, and he needs to take accountability and responsibility and remorse for what he does and make that zero tolerance law a law, and he needs to do it now.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Pearson, S-A-R-A-H-P-E-A-R-S-O-N, and I'm a survivor. I'm here with the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. Peter and I were actually in Rome when Prevost was elected. We had been launching a project called Conclave Watch with the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests where we were vetting Catholic cardinals around the world regarding their records on cover-up of sexual abuse of children and of adults, as well as their position on a zero-tolerance law that would permanently remove sex offenders from ministry in the Catholic Church and create a way in which bishops could be held accountable for continuing to cover up these crimes and put people in harm's way by allowing these dangerous predators to be in public and in positions of public trust. And as part of Conclave Watch, we initially filed 6 reports against cardinals in the Catholic Church for their roles in cover-up, institutional concealment of sexual crimes and enabling of those continued sexual crimes, putting people in danger. And one of the cardinals that we initially featured as part of our presentation was Robert Francis Prevost of Chicago. And the reason we chose to highlight his actions is because he was in a position of massive authority in the Catholic Church, being head of the dicastery for bishops. That dicastery oversees the people who run the Catholic Church throughout the world. It's an immense amount of power. And what alarmed us about Prevost is that in his capacity as a bishop, as the prior general of the Augustinians, that we had evidence of his own cover-up of sexual crimes. When he was in Chicago, when he was running the Global Augustinian Order, and then when he was in the Diocese of Chiclayo in Peru. So the reason we felt that it was absolutely essential that we file that report against Prevost is because how is somebody who is responsible for that kind of cover-up, for that kind of harm, now in a position, one of the top positions in the Vatican of oversight in the Catholic Church. So that's why we filed that report. At the time, we did not know Ana Maria Quispe Diaz, and we had read her testimony that she had put out. It was covered in several news outlets, and we were so impressed by her strength, and we wanted to show solidarity with her and with the other victims, and we incorporated their story into the report that we filed. And since then, we have gotten to know these victims from Peru much better. But Peter and I, when we were there in Rome, because we had read so much about this case, because we had done so much research on it, I just remember feeling heartbroken and angry when I heard Prevost's name, because I knew exactly what he was responsible for. And these documents that we have here today, the new things that we've uncovered, these recordings of meetings with church officials, these emails from Prevost himself, everything that has emerged in the past few months only goes to back up what we've always known to be true, that Ana Maria and the other victims in Peru are reliable witnesses, that they've been telling the truth, and they have been denigrated, they've been slandered, they've been attacked, and we've called on that publicly to stop. Ana Maria was here with us in July to give her testimony to the media in the United States firsthand. And in that testimony, she affirmed what she has always said, and that Prevost himself, and this wasn't decades ago, this was in 2022. So this cover-up happened after Pope Francis had amended the law of the Catholic Church. Prevost broke that law when he failed to carry out a proper investigation into the abuse that Ana Maria and the other victims reported, leaving that offender in ministry without removing him from ministry. There were 2 offenders. Both of them continued on without notifying the public. And then when Ana Maria spoke up about it, she was publicly attacked by the church. And what we have uncovered in these documents is that Prevost, while he was in Rome, maintained a personal knowledge of this case and even admitted just before the conclave and even in the summer, this past summer after the conclave, the anxiety he felt that this particular case of cover-up could impact the trajectory of his career, that he was even afraid that it could prevent him from becoming pope. What's happened that Peter has talked about is that in order to end any investigation into these offenders, the Vatican, and this would be signed off by Prevost himself, decided to offer a voluntary dispensation to a man who has been accused of multiple criminal sexual assaults of young girls. This means that there will be no trial, there will be no investigation, there will be no accountability, and that the victims who reported this are forced to live in a world where this man can operate in society with impunity. They're acting as though he's been punished, but he has not. What a voluntary dispensation is the equivalent of an honorary discharge in the military. He is not being held accountable for anything he's done. He is not being publicly identified. He is not being brought to justice. He is being able to go back into society and continue to operate with no consequences other than he can no longer represent himself as a priest. And that is absolutely just beyond for us. That is so wrong. It is so unfair to Anna Maria and the other victims, and we absolutely condemn it in the strongest terms. What we've also uncovered through the research that we've done and through our collaboration with other survivor groups and media outlets around the world are several audio recordings of people within the Diocese of Chiclayo, high-ranking people, canon law officials, and even Prevost's own colleagues, the people that he works with. Publicly, they're going and they are praising him, saying he did the right things, that he properly facilitated a canon law investigation. But behind the scenes, his own colleague, a canon lawyer appointed to oversee this case in Chiclayo, called his investigation a joke. He said, "I've never dealt with a situation like this before." And when talking about the offender himself, he said, as far as the investigation went, they asked Lute practically nothing. He didn't answer anything. Another person in the Diocese of Chiclayo, a priest who was assigned to a listening center there, he later told Anna Maria on the phone in a call that was recorded that actually, though they had been told that Lute was removed from ministry, that he was no longer able to exercise his priestly faculties in the Diocese of Chiclayo, he said, I don't want to lie to you, that's actually not the case, that he actually continues to minister, and that even though he's been banned from Chiclayo, he showed up here a couple times with Prevost's permission to say Mass and to do events in this diocese. There's one more thing that we want to draw attention to. Most of the reports around this cover-up have focused on Father Lute because of his status as a celebrity in Chiclayo due to his affiliation with the Eucharistic miracle. But there is another priest who has been named by Anna Maria, someone who sexually assaulted her when she was 10 years old. The diocese and Prevost and Pope Leo have all said that this person was too ill to stand trial, that he had a debilitating illness, and that he would not be able to defend himself the way that he deserved. We had been told by the media, by the Diocese of Chiclayo, that it was okay, an investigation didn't need to proceed because he hadn't been in ministry for years. While the whole time, they were just hoping that we would go on Facebook and look, because just the previous year, this is 2023, 3 years after Ana Maria Quispe Diaz reported the abuse by Ricardo Yesquen, Pope Leo, then Cardinal Prevost, throws a birthday party for him. He shows up, he takes pictures. This is a man who sexually assaulted a 10-year-old girl. And, as a young woman, she went and reported it to Prevost. And how does Prevost respond to that? He never opens up an investigation. He never calls her back. He throws a birthday party for the man who assaulted her. And that's who we're dealing with. So when we talk about zero tolerance, it has to start at the top. We have zero tolerance for what Prevost has done. And we understand that he will invoke immunity as the Pope, but we feel that he needs to be held accountable, that the investigation needs to continue, and that is why we plan to incorporate the findings that we are sharing with the media into an updated report that we will send to the Secretary of State at the Vatican, requesting that this investigation be carried out properly. Thank you.
I think that one of the things is quickly that needs to be emphasized here is like, why is this happening now? Why have they given an honorary discharge to this priest without any trial, without any investigation and finding of guilt, even though the priest admitted to these acts? It's pretty simple. If there was an investigation and a trial, as there should be, guess who would have to testify at the trial? And the document trail of his mismanagement, to say it nicely, but of covering up for this case, would be the Pope himself. So the Pope himself, and only he can do this, he makes the decision, I'm going to let this man, this child sex offender from my former diocese, who I have allowed to remain a priest for all these years, who I know sexually assaulted children, I am going to let him basically retire in honor, and he's going to be able to say, I am not guilty of anything. This priest has a significant following of families in Peru. He's known as the priest of children. That's his whole brand. That's his whole thing. And if you look at the details of these assaults, he is taking children overnight to a remote location where he has a room and a bed where he assaults these children. Do you think he started this yesterday or last year? What do you think? What does the Pope think Father Lute is doing right now? And these families who have complete trust in this man, who is famous for someone who so loves children, who takes their children everywhere, this is a red letter day when Father Lute takes interest in your child and in your family, and they hand their children over to him with complete trust so he can take them on missionary trips to remote parts of Peru, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, where he has a predetermined location. He even has drivers who have taken him there. And do you think that Prevost, when he was bishop of the diocese, or anybody investigating this case, even interviewed any of the drivers that were taking these children to these overnight locations? No, no, no. This is, as the man who was put in charge of supposedly looking into this case for the Diocese of Chiclayo, what he said on tape, this is a joke. What is he saying is a joke? The way Prevost, now the Pope, is handling this priest and this case. It's a joke. Everybody knows it's a joke. Everybody within the hierarchy or within the church officials in this diocese knows exactly what's happening here, because he's probably not the only case. Because if it's like every other diocese on the planet, he's got dozens and dozens of sex offenders they all do that they know about and that they're managing and trying to do damage control on. This is how serious this is. So think about this. What the Pope did is like, I'm going to decide because I'm the Pope and no one can tell me what to do, and I can issue any order I want, and it's going to have to be followed. I'm going to take this priest, that I'm responsible for, that I covered up for, that there are all these documents about, because we have some of these documents, and all these tape recordings and everything else, and I am going to make sure he never goes to trial. There's never going to be investigation because it's going to implicate me. It's going to implicate me, the Pope. And I think we can say pretty categorically, by his nervousness about this isn't anything we're saying, this has been published by his own official biographer. He was nervous about this case. He was concerned this could stop me from being the Pope. That's basically what he said. And you know what? He is the Pope. He is the Pope. And so we have a Pope who we now know has a history of covering up child sex crimes. We have a Pope who has said since he's been Pope, zero tolerance for abuse. That's going to be really difficult. That's going to be really hard. That's going to take a long time. You bet it's going to take a long time if he continues to behave the way he has. Responsibility and accountability. We're sending this properly to the Secretary of State of the Vatican. These cases of cover-up and evidence goes to the dicastery of bishops. They're supposed to be investigating each other. That's where all the evidence is going. We're going to send it to them. Cardinal Supich from Chicago, okay, a good friend of the Pope, he is one of the investigators at the dicastery of bishops. He is the senior cardinal, one of the senior cardinals over there who is charged and responsible for investigating when bishops have either been known or have evidence of abuse or who have covered up abuse. And they're responsible for making sure that evidence is investigated and there is more than enough probable cause in the voluminous amount of documents and tape recordings we have that that's exactly what Prevost did when he was bishop. So he's now the Pope. Should he claim immunity? The moral leader of the Catholic Church, 1.1 billion Catholics, the follower and vicar of Jesus Christ on earth, is going to claim immunity about covering up child sex crimes? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine this? To claim immunity? Fifth Amendment, Church Fifth Amendment, because I don't have to answer and be responsible to anybody? Well, he is responsible. He's responsible first to the children of the church. Secondly, to the many, many hundreds of thousands of victims like myself, like Al, like so many others that were sexually assaulted by these priests when they knew the priest was an offender. Okay? So this has been going on. It's going on right now. So we need accountability. We need answers. He needs to go to trial. He needs to, under oath, in a church trial that's transparent and available to everybody, like a trial should be, especially to the victims that were harmed and hurt because of this priest and covered up by the Pope. He needs to say under oath, swearing before God, taking an oath before God, because that's what you do at a trial. You put your hand up, you make an oath to tell the truth before God. That's what these victims deserve. That's what the children of Peru deserve. That's what survivors around the world deserve. So this is a moral moment. This is a moral crisis. This is a decision point about what his papacy is going to mean, what it means to be the vicar of Christ on earth, what remorse means, what responsibility means, and what accountability means. Those of us, many people here read the gospel. They know the gospel. You know what Jesus said about those who harm children or bring scandal to children? You know what he said? He said a millstone, a heavy, heavy stone, should be put around their neck, and they should be tossed into the sea. Wow. Wow. That's their own words from the gospel. Now, we're not asking for that. We just want justice. But that's how serious Christ took harming a child. It's the most serious thing one human being can do to another human being. He actually said it would be better if they were never born. If that person who harms a child, better if he was never born. And I can say, as a survivor, when I think about Father Liefeld, who assaulted me and dozens of other children, that's true. It would have been better if this man, if this offender, was never born. So we want the Pope to take seriously the words of Jesus Christ and to show by example what it means to walk the difficult path of responsibility and truth.
Would anyone else like to say anything?
This is the first time I've spoken in public about this. You have the power. And with great power comes great responsibility. Do the right thing on earth as the Pope. The buck stops with you. Have the courage to do the right thing. Change your heart and help survivors heal. Responsibility and you need to do the right thing. Stop the cover-ups, which will stop the rapes and abuse of children all over the world. Do the right thing.
Could you give your first and last name, please?
I'm sorry.
Get your first and last
My
name.
first name is Al, last name is Bruno.
Would you mind spelling it, please?
Bruno.
And first name?
Al, A-L.
And would you mind saying your name and spelling it as well?
Sure, it's Peter Isley, Isley.
P-E-T-E-R.
Correct.
Thank you.
With
Couple comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Steven Speranza, S-P-E-R-A-N-Z-A. I'm with Archangel Foundation, but a friend of SNAP, also a lawyer. And a lot of what I'm hearing, of course, echoes for a lawyer and echoing the comments I've heard about cover-ups, broken laws, impunity. And these aren't the kind of words we want to associate with our shepherds, right? I was thinking about goes all the way to the top. That's the worst thing that you can have in a scandal, right? It goes all the way to the top. So from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, we've got a failure of taking a responsibility and accountability for crimes. And, you know, again, as a lawyer, the evidence is mounted for decades, you know, and this has been going on for decades. And we're talking about shepherds and sheep, you know, pastoral care. And we have, again, a failure of that pastoral care. And it's not hard. It's not difficult, as Peter and Sarah and Al have all said. It's not difficult. But taking responsibility can be painful. But that's what we need. And zero tolerance law, if you have any law that can be broken with impunity, which is what we've heard, you need something else. You need a law with some teeth. And that zero tolerance law is you know, so necessary and vital right now. And the plea goes out from the sheep to the shepherds to do that ASAP. Thank you.
Can we answer any questions?
Just confirming this, the recording